Okay, welcome back. Welcome back. Hi, Sabrina. Hi, Rawia. Hi, Sanjeev. Welcome back.
Hi.
We're just waiting. Hi. People might be taking the full 60 seconds. How was your discussion? Did you come to a conclusion? Is it a skill set or a choice?
It was a very interesting discussion.
I think we kind of semi-agreed on it being a skill set, because sometimes you can't choose whether you are a leader or not, because choices given, you're made a leader through the way that you're presenting yourself or the way that you're bringing yourself to the table. So yeah, I think that was
okay, excellent.
And
well, I think let's check. Oh, sorry, Rawi, go on.
No, I was just saying that I'm somebody who's very much pro-choice, and I sort of felt that they're both relating to leadership, and I was thinking that we can choose the kind of leader we want to be. And by choosing how we want to be as a leader, we can also learn certain skill sets to fit that image of the leadership type of person that we want to be.
Oh,
so I sort of felt that the two are connected somehow.
Excellent. Well, great insight, Rowie. Great insight. So everybody's back. As we normally do, we forgot to press the record button. So we have now pressed the record button. So just to let you know, we are recording. So we've got this great session today lined up with Alastair James on purpose-led leadership. You've all been in breakout rooms, and the question was, is leadership a skill or a choice? We'd be really interested. Use the chat and just let us know, where did your group come to? I think Rawi has just shared a brilliant insight about maybe it's not an either or. But yeah, we'd be interested just to see in the chat what others think and what your discussions were. And we might ask one or two other people just to kind of share. And then Alastair will get on and share his brilliant model for purpose-led leadership. So let's have a look what's going on in the chat. So Susanna says choice, but one backed up by skills. Lucy, definitely both and two. Paul, we concluded it was both. Jane, great discussion in room 3, both. Andy Charles, it's fascinating chat with Gills and Paul, concluded it was both. Dominic, great chat about vulnerability, empathy and honesty. Dominic, do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, I don't know anything about any of those 3 things, Chris, but I'll No, we were talking about, being, learning or developing those skills, or actually having them, innately, and the key things to being successful as a leader. So they're the sorts of things we covered.
Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing, Dominic, and keep use the chat as we go. Use the chat to share your thoughts. Alastair, I'm going to hand back over to you now, and I think you're going to share with us your model for purpose-led leadership. But use the chat if you've got questions or observations as we go through. Let's capture them. Let's have an active chat going as well. But Alastair, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chris. Well, I'm glad that you enjoyed that chat. Can everyone see the question again? Give me a thumbs up if you can, just make sure it's working. Yep, great. So let me move on. The model Chris talks about is this. I talk about what you are leading as a leader, but then very importantly, how. In the longer version of this, I go into those 3 Ps around the outside: performance, people and purpose, in a bit more detail, and that will be in the slides we send you, but I'm going to focus on the how today. One of the things Deloitte I loathed when I was reading management books then was systems that had like 6 Cs and 3 Ps and all that kind of thing. But the 3 Ps, these particular 3 Ps, or a couple of variations of them, with Planetin perhaps before performance, were before purpose, have been around for quite a long time. But it occurred to me when I was thinking about leadership that quite a lot of the things that did matter to me did begin with the letter C. And I managed to wrench a couple of others into it. So I succumbed to the tendency of a management thinker to think in a alliterative way. So let's dive into those 6 Cs: care, consistency, curiosity, courage, collaboration, and candor. And this is the core of the model. And what I'm going to talk through with you is how I think each of those 6 Cs relate to the 3 Ps I mentioned, but also to how you manage yourself. And of course, there are skills and techniques involved in being a leader, but my experience being led by people who I thought were fantastic, being led by people that I thought were terrible, and then growing myself as a leader of other people, I began to think that actually there are some skills that people say you need, but if you have them and you don't choose to behave like a leader, they are stillborn. They don't actually make you a leader. And equally, if you choose to think about what leadership is and how you relate to the world in how you show up as a leader, actually learning the skills, it comes quite easily. And so for me, you do need to make the choice to behave in the kind of ways that I'm going to talk about if you want to succeed as a leader. And the other stuff is kind of secondary and will just come. So let me dive into a bit of the detail. So I'm going to work through them vertically. So I'm going to start with candor. And I think one of the most important things, if you see yourself as a purpose-led leader, the real world is difficult, and you may have an inspiring purpose and project that out to your business, but there will be times when you fall short of achieving that purpose. Sometimes that will be an error or an accident, and you, as I've said, stray from the purpose. Other times you will need to compromise, as Alex Edmonds talks about in his magnificent book about purpose, Grow the Pie. Sometimes the interests of our different stakeholders do conflict, and we cannot meet all their needs in the same way, and sometimes we do have to compromise and make decisions. And I think the most important thing when you stray from your purpose is that you're very candid about it. That as a leader, you don't try to hide it, you don't try to pretend it hasn't happened. You speak up, you acknowledge that you have strayed or compromised, and you explain why. In the first case, what went wrong and what we can learn from it. In the second place, explaining the thought process that you or the leadership team or whoever it is that has made that compromise, the thought process they've gone through. Not everyone will agree with it, but the fact that you've been upfront about it and the fact that people see that you've thought about it will usually be enough to get people to accept that that's the way that the organisation is moving. I also think you need to be candid about the challenges facing an organisation and how it is performing. Sometimes leaders think that the members of their organisation would be scared by knowing the truth about the performance challenges and how things are doing, or they very much present it as a kind of, we're doing badly, we must do better, you're all bad people because we're failing. And I think a much more open discussion about the realities, giving clarity to people about what the challenges are, how we're responding to them, what that's doing for us, how that's affecting performance. That's really important, that people get a clear understanding properly of how the business is working, and that there aren't then surprises if things are proving challenging or proving difficult, and people can start to think at all levels in the organisation about what they can do to address those challenges. I also think it's really important as a leader to be candid about any mistakes you make. A leader is a human being, they are going to make mistakes. Pretending you haven't made any, trying to project that heroic leader who never ever makes mistakes is incredibly foolish. Usually because it's not honest, but it's also very foolish because most people can see right through it. They know you made a mistake, and the fact that you're not open and honest about it, reflective about it, actually diminishes your standing and reputation, whereas being open about it, talking about it, actually strengthens it. You also need to be candid about how individuals are performing. We'll talk about how you do that, but not letting people know when they're not doing what they need to do in the business, when they do have areas that they need to grow in, or maybe Kim Scott talks about this a lot in Radical Candor, the sort of rather traditional way of only giving people performance feedback once a year, rather than giving them as things go and allowing them to grow and develop all the time, is not very effective. You need to constantly be giving people constructive advice about what they're doing well and what they can do better and how they can do it. You also need to be very honest with yourself about your own behaviour and performance. And I think a number of people who get into senior positions, perhaps because they suffer a bit from imposter syndrome, can start lying to themselves about how they're doing. And without turning yourself into, somebody who's just constantly beating yourself up and running yourself down. You need to be reflective about what you're doing well, what you could do differently, how you can grow as a leader. So that's my first column. Next, caring. If you do genuinely want to lead in a purposeful way, you absolutely genuinely have to care about your stakeholders and what it is that you're here to do for them and your impact on them. Deciding that because purpose is fashionable, or because the corporate governance code is potentially being updated to include it, trying to lead with a purpose that's been designed by a committee that you don't personally believe in is not going to be authentic. You're not going to be able to do that successfully. You really do actually need to care about the result. It needs to bother you when things are not going well. The issues that you're trying to address need to bother you. The needs of your customers need to bother you. And you then need to care both about how well we are delivering our purpose, but also about the financial success needed to fund it. There's a great quote, I won't get the wording exactly right, but it says that business and profits is like breathing in life. So we breathe to live, we don't live to breathe. And I think exactly the same is true about money. Okay, our businesses are there to deliver some purpose, but we absolutely need profit in order to do that. Or if you're not a profit-making organisation, you need to be on a financially sound basis so that you can stay functioning and that you can operate and that you can invest for the future. So it's really important you care about both. You should never see financial success as telling you you're succeeding at your purpose, but equally, you can't only focus on purpose and not care about the financial success that underpins it. Both of these are important. People, we absolutely need to care about our people as human beings. So when we're candid about how they're performing, that's not because they're a machine in a factory that's not meeting its performance specification. They are human beings, and we need to care about them as human beings. We need to care about how they will feel about how they're performing, how they will feel about our purpose, how they will feel about the challenges facing the organisation, the challenges they're having in their personal lives, and how that affects how they show up at work. We need to genuinely care about them as human beings, and we need to care about helping our people to be their best. And ideally, or in the first place, that should be thinking about how they can do their best within our organisation. But as the folks at Netflix, both of whose names I've forgotten, Reed Hastings and Patty McCord, say sometimes actually people will be their best outside the organisation. And sometimes your job as a leader is to help people to realise that and to help them make a move to somewhere where actually their skills and their interests can help them succeed. So it's not just about how they're performing for our business, that matters, but it's also about helping them grow and develop and be their best. You also need to care about your own physical and mental well-being and self-worth. So a lot of leaders work insanely hard, and a time will come when that can lead to mental breakdown or just really making very bad decisions because you're so tired. Leadership is a huge responsibility, and it's extremely difficult to discharge that properly if you're not paying attention to your own physical and mental well-being. Sort of presenteeism is as ridiculous in a leader as it is in anybody else. Just showing that you can work 15 hours a day, 7 days a week doesn't make you a better person. But being able to show up, be a leader, to manage your own success and your own health is really important. Next, collaboration. We should collaborate with our stakeholders. We shouldn't see them as just distant customers or distant consumers of our services. We should actually engage with them to find out genuinely what they really need. And I really like the idea when it's appropriate of co-creation of services and products with the people that are actually going to use them. We also should collaborate with others who share our purpose. If we're driven by purpose, what we want more is the outcome, the output that we're trying to deliver. And if there are other organizations that are delivering similar things, we should collaborate with them. Even if we're in a commercial enterprise and they're our competitors, we should still have a relationship with them that considers how we compete commercially, but also how collectively we deliver more of what it is that we're in business to provide to people. You should absolutely collaborate in solving problems and making decisions. Any leader who thinks they know everything is a mistaken. Steve Jobs famously said, you don't hire intelligent people to tell them what to do, you hire intelligent people to tell you what to do. You don't know everything, and you may see things in some way and somebody else may see them in a different way, and you'll get better decisions if you collaborate in doing that. You should collaborate with peers to achieve your purpose. One of the things that most frustrated me in my career is watching individuals running different departments in organizations essentially competing with each other, trying to stab each other in the back, undermine each other. It's absolutely absurd and ridiculous. And you can choose to collaborate with your peers no matter how they behave. Clearly, you should also collaborate with those who know more than you do on a subject. You shouldn't get sucked into that idea that as a leader, you always need to give the impression that you know more than anybody else in the room. You should very much acknowledge when other people know more and really pay attention to what they're saying and what they think and why. You need to collaborate with your team to leverage the best that they will have to offer. That's kind of the same idea, but with people who are kind of underneath you in the hierarchy, if you have one, rather than people who are sideways. You should also collaborate with others to share the burden of leadership. Leadership is a lonely position, and you can to some extent lean on your senior team, but at the end of the day, if you are sitting above them in a hierarchy, there's only so far that goes. So you need to have mentors, coaches, family members who you can rely on to offload some of that burden when it gets really difficult. Next, consistency. Very important to be consistent in how you communicate purpose and values to all stakeholders. And if you intend to become a truly values-led organization, a truly purpose-driven one, it requires constant repetition. It's no good to do a big announcement of your new purpose statement and your values, stick some posters on the wall and then stop talking about it. It's got to be embedded in everything you do. And that brings you on to the next point. That needs to be aligned in your management actions. If you say one thing, but your actions show something else, if you claim you're driven by purpose, but the only metrics that anybody has ever measured, rewarded or punished on are financial, it will quickly become inauthentic and not work. So you need consistency in what you say over time, but also in how every part of the organization is aligned to the purpose and values that you have. You need to be consistent in, from a performance point of view, in reporting measures that usefully inform about progress towards our purpose. It's very frustrating to see people start changing the measure they're reporting when the one that they were reporting starts to show something bad and the one that they weren't reporting starts to go up. So they kind of focus on the thing that looks best and try and draw attention to that. That doesn't actually help you understand what's going on. The only way is to have useful measures that are genuinely showing you what you need, and paying attention to them, whether they're going up or down, and being interested, which I'll come on to in a minute about why they go down, when they go down. And that consistency needs to be there over time. You need to be able to see timelines of things. Clearly, things will change because the world changes, your understanding changes, but that's a different reason. It's about not flip-flopping from one thing to another to try to make it look good. You need to be consistent in the messages you give, but you also need to explain changes in direction. Changes in direction will be needed, and there's a false consistency that continues to pretend you were doing one thing when you've actually started to do something different. So when you do change, you need to acknowledge that, you need to be clear about it, you need to explain why. In yourself, you need to be consistent in your principles and your actions. Again, walk the walk, walk the talk. But you also need to be flexible. I think it was Keynes, somebody who was interviewing Keynes about one of his later books, said that it completely contradicted one of his books that he'd written 20 years earlier, and how to justify that. And he said, when the facts change or my understanding of the world changes, I change my mind. What do you do? So you do need to change your mind when you understand the world better, but you need to be really clear in explaining that to people and not pretending that you haven't changed your mind or you're still doing what you were doing before. Be open about it. Courage. You need to have the courage to do the right thing in challenging circumstances. In all kinds of businesses, there will definitely be very difficult times, and particularly in ones that are trying to be driven by purpose. And you need to make the right call, not the one that makes you look good, but the one that's the right thing for your stakeholders, for the higher purpose that you're behind. That will require you to make difficult decisions, and you have to have the courage to make them, but also to justify them, to explain why you've done what you've done. You also need to show the courage to take risks and fail. Failure is essential for growth and success. A great book I read recently by Matthew Syed talked about a figure skater who was the first person to do some amazing jump. And she and her coach calculated that approximately she'd fallen over 20,000 times before she managed to do it at the Olympics and win a gold medal. So if we're going to do difficult things, we're going to fail. We need the courage to keep going when it gets tough. To walk towards trouble, not away from it. That's a mantra I had all the time when I was a leader. I started to realize that when people brought me a problem, rather than pushing it back on them or running away from it or hoping it would go away, I needed to stand up and walk right towards it. And that was you'd be far more likely to solve it by engaging with it in a straightforward way. And you need to show the courage to take responsibility when things go wrong and not try to shift the blame onto other people. You need to have the courage to be vulnerable with colleagues. I do think people respect leaders who are vulnerable far more than ones who are kind of macho in any way. You also need to have the courage to give difficult messages, as I've already said about feedback, but also to ask for them and to hear them. It's one thing to ask for difficult messages, but you need to be seen to take action when people tell you that there are things you could do better or differently. You also very much need the courage to do what is best for others, even at your own expense. If these things truly matter to you, if the purpose matters, if your own integrity matters, if the organization matters, you need to do what's the right thing to do, even if that disadvantages you. And you also need the courage to make and learn from mistakes. Finally, curiosity. For me, the way I work, this has always actually been underpinning everything. So I think genuine curiosity about the true needs, interests and situation of our stakeholders will help you provide a far better service and achieve your purpose much better, because you're genuinely interested and curious about what's going on. When things do go wrong, be curious about the root causes. The kind of default assumption in business is that we set a target and if it goes wrong, it's the manager who had that accountability who's at fault. But that may not be the case at all. And having a genuine inquiry into why things haven't worked is really, really essential. It may be that the manager's not good enough for the job, but that shouldn't be the default assumption. I would recommend being curious about leadership theory and practice. As a leader, you are managing the three most complex things in the universe: the human brain, which is the most complex single system in the entire universe that we know of, and then a team is a collection of those, and you're managing it in the context of society, which is the most incredibly complicated thing. If you were an IT professional or a finance professional, you do a lot of studying of that. We wouldn't hire a financial person and tell them to just learn it on the job without having an accounting qualification. And yet so often managers and leaders are promoted with very little training at all. And there's a huge amount that you can read out there at the moment. A lot of the books were mentioned in the chat at the beginning, and I would really encourage you to constantly be curious about how people are thinking about leadership, thinking about human psychology. You should also be very curious about other areas of domain expertise and constantly trying to grow your skills. About your people as human beings, what makes them tick, what motivates them. Very much about the opinions and insights of others. You won't always agree with other people. You and they will understand the world better if you have really open conversations about why they see it differently. And finally, that curiosity will all allow you to grow constantly as a person and a leader. I think all of these things are things you can choose to do, and regardless of the level of skill you have in certain technical areas, I think adopting the attitudes encapsulated by that will make you into a great leader. That's what I have. So we're going to put you back into leadership groups and ask you to think about which of the C's resonated most with you and why. I hope you found that useful and interesting, and interested to hear any feedback in the future. Chris.
Okay, so I'm going to open the breakout rooms again. So we've had a few people join. So we're going to open the rooms, and if you're not assigned to a room, we will assign you on straight away. So I think we've got, again, about 11 minutes for this conversation. So open the rooms. Okay, welcome back. We hope you had a good discussion. So we've got about 4 minutes left. So if you could use the chat, tell us, was there one of the C's that particularly resonated with you individually? It'd be really interesting just to see if people liked any one of the particular C's, and also just let us know how the conversation was. And again, I think we've got time maybe to invite one or two people just to share their discussion. But again, use we've got you on the screen as well. Let us know, how was the discussion? What do you think of the model? Does it resonate with you? Is it comprehensive? Is there stuff missing? How was the conversation? So Joe says care and courage, Packard courage, Simone candid, Karen is care. Anybody want to unmute and maybe just share what the discussion was in their group? I was looking if anybody wants to put their hand up.
Hello.
I don't mind a few words.
Yeah, absolutely. Go on, Elena.
Hello, nice to meet you all. I think I opened, and I think we all agreed, I hope, that for me, the marker of a quality person is when immediately they can understand to take ownership over something that went wrong, accountability and ownership over a mistake. And that immediately builds trust. Asking all the right questions, being vulnerable, no matter how silly it is. And then we were talking about the balance between doing that maybe too much so people don't feel they can trust, because if you ask too many questions, you might dip into, well, do they know what they're doing? So I think it's a really fine balance. And if you can get it, that's almost impossible to learn. Or if you do learn over the years of working, it's because you are so open to hearing what people have to say to you. So it's very interesting. Yeah, we had a
great point. Sounds like a great discussion. Thank you. Now, Alberto, for those of you who are regulars, Alberto normally does the photo. And so I've had to take a Google, but what we'd like to do with everybody is if everybody can put a big smile on and show how you feel about this, we'd love to take a photo. So hopefully my Google tutorial has taught me right. It's not working right. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Right. So everybody, 3, 2, 1, and everybody say, show a big smile. Okay, and we're going to do one more because we've got 2 screens. So we're going to do another one. So Alberto is much better at this than I am. Let's see. Here we go. So 3, 2, 1. If everybody could do a big smile again. Excellent. So we've come to the end of our time. Thank you, Alastair. Now, one of the things I wanted to share is we've developed a quiz that goes with Alastair's model for purpose-led leadership. And so if anybody would like to volunteer to be a beta tester, just to run through and see whether the insights it gives are useful insights, how it works, please email me and let me know. We could really do with about 10 people who'd be willing to kind of give it a road test. I think all that remains is to say thank you to Alastair. And Sarah, do you want to tell people very quickly about our next session?
I'd love to. Yeah, thank you so much, Alastair, from aspiring rocket scientist to purpose pioneer. So thank you so much. Thank you everybody for coming, and we'll send out the recording, the chat. A quick shout out for the next session. It's in 2 weeks' time, 17th of March. At a different time, 1 p.m. UK. It's with Andy Green, and Andy's going to be talking about how to kickstart faster change for a more purposeful society. He's going to be sharing a kind of purpose DIY kit. I think that enables you to come up with your own purpose manifesto. So that's going to be a great session, and we hope to see you in 2 weeks' time. Take care, everybody.
Excellent, thank you. And thank you so much, Alastair, for sharing your leadership wisdom.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful Thursday.
Thanks, Chris.
Bye.
Excellent. Well, high five. We managed it without Alberta, but yeah, it's never quite as smooth. It's always a bit more fraught doing it with the 2 rather than the 3.
It is, but good to kind of, it's good to miss as well, isn't it? And then kind of, realize what the person adds. So yes. Our recording's still going as well.
It's still going. So Alberto, hello. You have to edit this bit out.
Yeah.
We missed you.
We've missed you.